Welcome back to another episode of Boomer Bust, your home for NFL Draft Talk. I'm your host, Terry, and today we are talking about the linebackers of the 2019 draft. At the end of this episode, we will be doing a real grade for the New York Jets. And as always, you could go to the description to find a link to the notes that has a few more players, a little more detailed notes. So this episode is not going to be that long because the linebackers have changed linebackers used to be high up there, man. They used to be real important. They used to be real tough positions to play, highly skilled, highly technique, highly analytical positions. And it has been just dumbed down. I often talk about the disease of the spread and how that has killed many positions over the years, slowly but surely. And for a while, quarterback and tackle, those were two of the big victims. Now it's receiver, as of late. And I would say linebacker has changed a while ago, but this year is the first time I'm like, wow, it's just completely a shell of what it used to be. And I remember the exact time I felt it was different. And that's when Deion Jones out of LSU became a star in the NFL with the Falcons. Now, to be fair, since then, he has not been on the level of a Luke Kuechly, a Bobby Wagner, any of those type of linebackers. So that does make me feel a little better. But the fact that he was able to reach such acclaim as just a glorified chase linebacker, it concerned me. I wouldn't say it upset me. I don't care about being wrong. It concerned me that people would start to look at linebackers that didn't have the skill set that they once had. And that's truly what has happened. And it's tough because as much as people think it's a passing league and it's a spread league and all that stuff, I don't think the game resembles college that much. I always watch the NFL season like, man, it's changing. It's so spread. But then I actually watch the college games for the draft. It's not the same. College offenses are just a different thing and they're terrible, to be honest with you. But your job is to win. And in order to win, you got to do what coaches want you to do and to keep your scholarship and to get drafted, all that stuff. So unfortunately, much like quarterbacks, much like linemen, much like receivers, you're having players being asked to do something totally different in college than they're actually going to do in the NFL. And so that makes it a tougher transition, unfortunately. And so you got these guys that are just chase linebackers. They don't come downhill. They don't read the keys, and it wasn't always people good at reading keys, but at least they came downhill. The thought was make a play in the backfield. Now the thought is just run over the top of the trash and meet them, and whatever they get, they get. And in the league, you can't do that. Like I see that in college, where it's just like 8-yard rip, 7-yard rip, 7-yard rip, 8-yard rip. And it's like, we know eventually they are going to go away from the run game if they're a spread offense. They're going to do a bunch of screens and other crap to try to get their yards. But in the NFL, if you're getting ripped like that, they are going to continue to rip you. And so you're getting linebackers that just don't have the same mindset that they used to. And so, yeah, it's tough, and they're built lighter, which means they got to be faster to cover more space because more people want 3-down linebackers. It's all about covering and covering, even though none of these people know how to cover. I swear 95% of these people don't know how to cover in high or in college, and a lot of them don't know how to cover in the NFL. They just stare at the quarterback, but they're fast enough to run around. You don't have guys that are actually taught how to recognize patterns and how to actually take away routes. Not until they become more elite linebackers in the NFL. And so it's like we got all these fast guys and don't really teach them what to do with it. And so anyway. They're easier to block. They're more hesitant to come downhill. They don't tackle as well. All these things, and that's where we are now. With that being said, the 3 top prospects are Devin Bush out of Michigan, Devin White out of LSU, and then Mack Wilson out of Alabama. Look, they're all pretty similar. I mean, there is so little distinction between the games of the top linebackers these days. Like, it's not even worth me covering. I could almost copy and paste my reports. I don't, but I almost could, because it's the same thing. They don't know how to take on blocks well. They don't, come downhill. Like, there's a lot of, gradable traits for linebackers for me. One of the gradable traits is run through. And run through is your ability to be explosive coming downhill and filling the gap. Your ability to recognize it and come downhill, your willingness to come down and fill the gap, your ability to fill the gap through blocks, all that. That's your run through. And it used to be a huge thing for me because it would predict what linebackers would be good at making tackles for loss. That is like not even a thing anymore. I mean, you'll get it rarely, but most of these players have no run through. They do what you used to teach linebackers not to do, which is just sit still and wait and try to run around the block and meet the running back. That's not what we want. We need you to fill your gap if it's open. Read your keys, fill your gap. If the gap's not open, we need you, and there's a block coming, we need you to blow it up so we could get as least yards as possible. That's not what they do anymore. So I would say Mack Wilson out of the 3 is probably the best at run through and taking on blocks. They play for Alabama. They're a little more pro taught, and they play SEC teams that tend to have a lot more power and skill. And so I would say as far as taking on blocks and having a run through, Mack Wilson's the best. I mean, they're all 3, especially Devin White and Devin Bush. They're really explosive when they choose to run. They just don't choose to run a lot. And then play recognition is another thing that has went down. It's all about staring in the backfield, which some coaches have always taught that. Me, I'm a guard read. I like to read the key. Some people read the triangle backfield to guards, or centers interior. And so that's kind of going by the wayside. And I understand they're in tough positions because most of the offense in college is illegal. You got people, downfield, offensive linemen downfield on almost all the plays, screens, RPOs. That's illegal. You got receivers downfield blocking before the pass is thrown. That's illegal. And so with all the misdirection and the different things that spread, I get it. The linebackers, they're not going to be able to read the same way, especially with RPOs, because with RPOs, they call the play the same for the linemen. And so the line don't even know if it's a run play or not. And so they're blocking like it's a run play. And so if you're reading your keys, you could be very wrong. And then they throw the ball right behind you, which is how RPOs were designed. And so I get it. It's tough for them to read plays and diagnose it. I think overall defenses are better at figuring out screens, but for the most part, they just read the backfield. They try to see where the ball is and they run to it. Sometimes they leave their gaps and stuff, and that's a problem. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to differentiate. But if you're talking about coverage, I would say Devin White is probably the best out of the group because he has the most capability to move around, but also a good mix of awareness, whereas Mack Wilson has pretty good awareness. Again, Bama kind of teaches you, but I wouldn't say he's the athlete that the other 2 are. So I like I like Devin White as far as his ability to play coverage. So yeah, I mean, cool. Devin White would be my number 1. I think he has a bit of toughness and dog mentality to him that linebackers need, even though he's more built like a smaller guy. Bush, I think, is a lot of athleticism. He's unrefined and he's not really eager to take on blocks at all. And then Mac Wilson, I just think, is a lesser athlete between those two. Other guys to look out for, I really like Voshon Joseph out of Florida. Reminds me a lot of Jerome Baker coming out of Ohio State. Except he takes on blocks a lot. Now I think Baker was super smart at getting underneath blocks. And I think Joseph can get underneath blocks as well, but he also isn't scared to take on blocks and really try to blow stuff up. But man, his blitzing off the edge, he's got a little bit longer arms. I mean, he isn't a pass rusher or anything, but he looks good coming off the edge. So some linebackers are good timing it up the middle, making the sack cool. But when you could play off the edge and beat a tackle, that's pretty impressive. And he has a high motor. He's a gamer. He likes playing. I think he could run, cover, hit. I might like him better than Devin Bush, to be honest with you. And then you got David Long Jr. out of West Virginia. Ran a really nice time at the combine. Really undersized, 227, built like a safety. At first, I thought he was a dog safety. West Virginia runs that 3-3-5. And so you had a two outside safety linebacker hybrids that we've seen a couple people come out as. And that's what I thought he was, but he was an actual stacked backer in those three. And he played all over the place. He looks a little stiff, but again, in a straight line, he ran a really nice time. Should be interesting. I mean, you wouldn't think he was 227, to be honest, on game film. Maybe he lost some weight because I don't think he was scared of blocks the way I was anticipating him to be. And he's a really good blitzer. Like, he'll come in, he'll rip and get underneath some blocks. He'll come off the edge. He works to get to the quarterback. So I'm actually pretty excited about him. So I'm not going to rant anymore about the linebackers. I think it's a pretty good group though. When you're talking about five pretty, like, I would say first to third round talents, that's pretty good at the linebacker spot. The depth after that, not so much. Not a great year, but I like the talent up top for the new age linebackers, as they say. All right. So with that being said, let's go back to the New York Jets 2016 draft. As soon as I pull it up. All right. Number 1, we got Darren Lee out of Ohio State. Still with the team, has been a starter. We'll see if he starts now. They got CJ Mosley. 2, you got Christian Hackenberg out of Penn State, now with the AAF out of the league. 3rd round, you got Jordan Jenkins, who has been given some starting reps and been pretty good the last year for the Jets. You got 4th, Justin Burris, who is cornerback. He's now with the Browns. He was with the Jets up until this year. Ended up with the Browns, not really a starter. Brandon Shell has been a starter for the Jets, still with the team. Lake, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but Edwards, the punter. He's been their punter for 3 years, so there you go. And then Sharon Peak out of Clemson, who is actually still with the team, more of a special teamer though. All right, so you're talking about 7 picks. Out of 7 picks, 5 are still with the team. Out of the 5 that are with the team, you have 4 starters. So 5 of the 4 are starters. Now this is where it gets tricky because it sounds really good, but Darren Lee has not been a first round level talent at linebacker. Jordan Jenkins has been producing probably a little more than people expected. Brandon Shell, while starting as a 5th round tackle, is big. I think he's a guard too. I don't know if he plays tackle or guard, but while starting is pretty big, that O-line's not that good. The punter, 7th round, he's starting. We rather him start than not be there. So it's a little tricky when you say 4 out of 5 are starting. And we'll see if Darren Lee will continue to be a starter. But then you got 2 people or 1 person out of the league, and that was a big miss. That was your 2nd round quarterback. Quarterbacks can be hit or miss, but when you take one in the first 2 rounds, you gotta be, I wouldn't say you gotta be pretty sure, but you definitely are taking a gamble. And Hackenberg was a gigantic bust. So far, we'll see if he can resurrect his career, but I don't know, man. It doesn't look good. So Hackenberg, that's a huge loss. He is the one guy out of the league. And then the other guy now with your team is on another team, but never really was a starter for you at 4th round. I get at a wash. That's not too bad. And even your 7th round pick receiver is still with the team. So team that lacks talent and so important to have the draft, more likely that they'll still be on the team. But out of 7 picks, 5 still on the team, most of them starters, I will give this draft a C+. All right, that's it for this episode. Go down comment section. Let me know what you think about the Jets draft in 2016. Let me know what you think about these linebackers, anyone in particular you're curious about or that excites you. And what do you think about linebackers in general now? Are they too different? You think they're pretty much the same? Do you think they're better, worse? Let me know. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.